Folklore survives for strange reasons, sometimes because it explains something real, and sometimes because enough people vanish after ignoring it. Along the western coast, south of Tindrem, an old warning is still spoken before storms. If you see the lantern of Dreg'Soth, do not follow it. There are places on Nave where a road becomes feared long before any map bothers to name it. A bend in the trail where caravans speak more quietly. A valley where shepherds count their flock twice before dusk. A stretch of coast where men who have sailed half of their lives begin, for reasons they cannot fully explain, to keep farther from shore than the winds require. Southwest of Tindrem, beyond the cleaner harbours and watched routes, the coast grows older in spirit. The white certainty of the city does not end all at once. It thins. Stone gives way to broken rises, hard bluffs, thorn country, old villas left to weather, ruined watchposts, and lonely towers built for reasons later generations only half remember. The sea there does not crash in one continuous line, but fingers inward through coves and narrow inlets, biting at the land in patient silence. In fog, the whole coast seems unfinished. In storm, it seems hostile. And on certain nights, if the old stories are to be believed, it seems to answer to something other than wind and tide. It is there, along that western reach, that the old tale of the lantern of Dreg'Soth still survives. Not in any official archive. Not so far as I have ever seen in the registries of Tindrem's harbour offices or among the clean practical warnings of charts and merchants, but in smaller places, in fishing camps where nets are mended by hand, in roadside fires south of the trade paths, in dockside rooms where men speak more freely after the third cup than they would before noon. It survives in fragments, in warnings, in inherited habits, and in the sort of repeated detail that outlives explanation. That is usually how such things endure. Not because they are proven, because they are remembered. Now, what Dreg'Soth was, or who, depends greatly on who is telling it. Some say the name belonged to an old pirate lord who once hunted the western coast when Tindrem's reach was weaker and its roads less secure. Others claim it was the name of no man at all, but of a ruined place. An older tower, a drowned cove, a watch-fired post long fallen into salt and myth. A few insist the word is not truly Tindremic, nor Sardakan, nor Curit either, but some older corruption handed down by frightened tongues until only the harsh shell of it remained. That, too, has the ring of truth. Old legends are often like bones dug from bad earth. The flesh is gone, the shape remains. At its simplest, the tale is this: a light is seen where no proper light should be. Not always from the same place, not always in the same weather. Sometimes it burns from the upper dark of a coastal ruin. Sometimes it hovers low beyond the sea mist, too steady for a ship's lamp and too distant for any honest watchfire. Sometimes it appears inland first, through fog or rain, only to be seen later over black water where no tower stands at all. And those who trust it too eagerly are said to come to grief. That is the plain version, the tavern version, the one fit for quick telling and nervous laughter. But the reason the story persists is not that ships vanish whenever the lantern appears. If it were only that, men would have charted the hazard, named the reef, and gone on with their lives. Sailors are superstitious, yes, but not without cause, and not without discipline. A thing that wrecks ships consistently becomes a navigational fact, however grandly one dresses it afterward. No, the lantern of Dreg'Soth endures because it refuses to behave like a simple danger. Some who followed it were lost, some survived. Some swore it led them toward rocks hidden under storm water, where hulls split open like rotten fruit, Others swore with equal conviction that the same strange light drew them out of darkness, through weather and shoal, into waters they should not have been able to navigate at all. A few returned, claiming the light had not guided them anywhere, only watched them, remaining always just beyond certainty, off the starboard side, beyond the next rise, at the edge of visible distance, as if waiting to see whether they would choose it. That is a worse kind of folklore. A trap is easier to understand than a thing that merely offers itself. The coast west and south of Tindrim lends itself to such fears. The maps make that plain enough. Inland, the city's authority projects order, roads, structures, walls, measured districts with the clean arrogance of civilization. But beyond that, the land begins to roughen. The sea road toward Metuli and the more broken western reaches passes through a geography full of half-forgotten spaces. Coves where a small craft might vanish, ruins from older conflicts, villa estates left dead on the cliffs, places too close to the city to be truly wild and yet too isolated to ever be fully governed. That is fertile ground for folklore, because the official world and the lived world overlap there. And where those two fail to agree, legends grow. Among the oldest surviving fragments tied to the tale is an eyewitness account attributed to a man trapped in the upper ruin of a western lighthouse villa on what later tellings call Wolf Island. Whether that location was the true original site, I cannot say. But the account itself bears the shape of something genuine, not composed for drama, not written to persuade, but scratched down by a frightened soul trying only to preserve a few facts before they were swept away with him. It begins with no title, no invocation, no poetry. Only this: it looks as if I must be my own rescue. There is something in that line I trust more than I trust heroic language. It belongs to no bard. It belongs to a man whose world has narrowed very suddenly. The writer, perhaps a keeper, perhaps a caretaker, perhaps only some unfortunate stranded there, goes on to describe a pirate assault on the lighthouse. Not a raid upon a village, not an ambush along the road, a direct attack upon the tower itself using catapults and so near to Tindrim's coastal reach that the act struck him as mad. He cannot understand why they would do it, neither can I. A lighthouse may be robbed if provisions or valuables are kept there. Its keeper may be killed if pirates are ruthless enough. But siege? Deliberate bombardment? Such violence suggests not appetite but purpose. Then comes the storm. Or perhaps it was already gathering. Such details are always clearer in retelling than they are in the moment of survival. The witness writes that lightning struck the pirate vessel, not the sea around it, not some distant cliff, their ship. The sails caught. Men died where they stood. The mast shivered and broke, scattering burning wreckage and broken timber across the deck. The attackers, he says, withdrew further down the coast. Not fled, withdrew. That is the detail that catches in the mind. The man does not sound like one who believes they were defeated utterly. He sounds like one who watched them break off for another purpose, to regroup, to survey, to look farther along the shore for something the ruined lighthouse itself had not given them. And that is where the fragment grows more intimate and therefore more troubling. Villagers farther up the road have fled. Only a few remained the last time he saw them. He hides beside a chest he dragged up broken stairs. He knows he may have to leave it. He only hopes the attackers do not find it first. No grand revelation follows. No final burst of spectacle. Just a shrinking world, the upper chamber, the broken stair, the chest, the sea below, and a man listening for boots or waves, or perhaps something worse than either. If the account ended there, and in all surviving copies it does, one might dismiss it as only a vivid scrap from one of the many ugly coastal violences that history forgets. Pirates attacked, storm intervened, survivors invented meanings later. That is possible, but the story does not stand alone. Because later coastal accounts, separated by distance, by years, sometimes by generations, cling to the same wrong center of gravity. Not the pirates, not the tower. The waters farther on. Fishermen speak of nights when a light could be seen below the line where the cliff lantern ought to stand, as though the sea itself held a lamp. Riders on the high bluffs southwest of Tindrim claim that in certain weather a ruined tower appears less ruined than it should. A window gold, with fire where no window remains, an upper opening lit where no keeper lives. A scavenger out of Meduli once swore that he saw both at once, the dark shape of a tower inland through the fog, and far below it, over the water, a second answering gleam. That is too much for a practical man, which is why practical men so often scoff at the tale by daylight. But daylight is not the hour in which folklore proves itself useful. There are, as always, explanations favoured by the sensible. Wreckers, some say, pirates, with false lamps to draw ships toward rock and salvage, a not uncommon evil in many lands, and one cruel enough to account for much. Others blame old signal towers, their histories confused over time. A fire seen in one ruin becomes, in memory, a phantom light in another. The coast distorts distance. Fog multiplies error. Fear finishes the work. And all of this may be true for some of the stories, but it is the contradictions that keep the lantern alive. A false beacon lit by wreckers explains a fixed light placed for profit. It does not explain the accounts that describe the light moving with impossible patience. It does not explain those who say it appeared in weather no flame should survive. It does not explain the handful of survivors who returned with bearings and route descriptions that matched no accepted channel, though they insisted the light had brought them through safely. Nor does it explain why certain coastal families, even now, will shutter their sea-facing windows before storms and leave no lamp in the upper room. That is not seamanship. That is inheritance. One old custom, repeated from cottage to cottage in the western reaches, holds that no house should answer a lantern from the water after midnight. If a light is seen offshore, one does not lift a lamp in return. One does not signal. One does not step outside to gain a clearer view. One bars the door, lowers the flame, and waits for dawn. Why? Because not every light is looking to be found. It is a foolish saying, perhaps, until one considers how many foolish sayings are merely practical truths worn thin by repetition. There is another version of the tale, darker and less often told, which says the lantern appears only to those already near to being lost. Not morally, not spiritually. More simply than that. A helmsman uncertain of his course. A traveller too long on the cliff path after dusk. A watcher whose eyes have searched fog until distance and imagination begin to trade places. Such people do not see the lantern because it has chosen them. They see it because they have reached the point where a single bad decision can still feel like rescue. That version I believe more readily than the rest, because it is cruel in a human way. Not some howling demon of the deep, announcing itself with spectacle and malice. Only a light, one that seems, for a moment, helpful. One that asks you to trust what you should not. That is the heart of old folklore, when it is good enough to endure. It does not merely tell you that danger exists. It tells you the form danger takes when it wishes to be welcomed. And so the lantern of Dreg'Soth remains, perhaps it was once a real signal. Perhaps it marked pirates lying in wait beyond the coves. Perhaps the ruined western lighthouse was attacked by men trying to destroy something they themselves feared, and lightning broke them before they finished. Perhaps the witness in the tower saw only one night's violence, and later generations wrapped older dread around it, until the thing became inseparable from the coast itself. Or perhaps the sea remembers lights the land has forgotten. That is not a thought a magistrate would entertain. But sailors are not magistrates, and cliffs do not care what cities record. Even now, between Tindrum and the harsher reaches to the southwest, the coast keeps its own quiet reputation. Men who know those waters well still give certain inlets a wider berth when fog drifts too low. Some who ride the bluffs claim a dead tower sometimes catches in evening fire in ways no ruin should, and from time to time, never often enough to become ordinary, but often enough not to disappear entirely. Someone speaks of a lone lantern burning where no chart gives leave for one, which is why the old warning remains, not written, spoken, passed from one wary soul to another. If ever you are on the western coast and the weather turns uncertain, and out beyond the black water you glimpse a light that seems too steady, too patient, too perfectly placed, do not take comfort in it. Do not answer it from the shore. Do not imagine, simply because it appears in your hour of need, that it was lit for your sake. Because along that coast, southwest of Tindrum, there are still those who believe that the lantern of Dreg'Soth has never truly gone out. And if that is true, then the worst thing about it is not that it calls men to ruin. It is that in the moment before ruin, it looks so very much like hope.